Hello. Welcome, folks. So happy to have you here. If you are new here, you are watching the Zenith Glow Astrology YouTube channel, and my name is Christina, and I'm an astrologer. If you are not new here, welcome back. So happy to have you. We are gonna go deep today, folks, which is so appropriate because we are talking about the new moon in Scorpio, which is coming up in a few days here. Scorpio is deep. We're going deep. And I have to tell you, I think I said in my last video that I have a lot of Sagittarius in my chart, which is true. I also have a lot of Scorpio in my chart. And this is one of my favorite things to do. I like to dig into the details, I like to investigate, and I like to go deep into subjects. So, in the words of Mr. Arnold from Jurassic Park, hold on to your butts because we're going to go so deep into the esotericism here. Before we do that, I'm going to ask you, please, if you haven't already, subscribe, like this video, hit the notification bell. Doing so supports my work, and I really appreciate you all for doing that. Thank you. All right, are you ready? Are you ready? Okay, here we go. So let's start with the astrology. We're going to start surface level and we're going to burrow ever so deeper as we look at all the information. Let's start with the basics. We have a new moon in Scorpio on November 20th. Okay, so just in a few days here. It will be exact at 1:46 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We are now on Eastern Standard Time. And it's going to be at 28 degrees, 11 minutes of Scorpio. 28 reduces to 10, 10 plus 11, we have 111. 111. We're already getting little nuggets of esoteric symbolism. Okay. So we had a full moon in Taurus a couple of weeks ago, right? How did that go for you all? It was so much more intense than I anticipated it would be, even for myself. I don't think I completely, what's the word I'm trying to look for? I don't think I completely accepted the importance of the yod that happened at that event. So that was super intense. That Taurus full moon brought endings to things, okay? It brought culmination and it brought illumination. The reason I'm mentioning it is because this Scorpio new moon is tied into that Taurus full moon, and they are linked together by the Mercury and Jupiter retrograde stations, which have happened about the halfway point between each lunar event. And this is all tied a week back further from the Taurus full moon into the 3-eye Atlas perihelion and all the stuff. You can literally just go back through my videos and see all of these events happening bam, bam, bam consecutively. They are all linked together. So we're continuing this flow, this huge opening of energy, this huge purging of what doesn't belong. It's a big transformation process. Now, if you check out, or if you have already checked out, thank you, by the way, my 11/11 Jupiter retrograde video, I talk about all of the blessings that are coming to us through Jupiter's retrograde cycle, which is all true. Yet, to receive these blessings, there are certain things that have to happen with each of us, and it's going to happen for each of us in a unique way. And the things that have to happen involve letting go of what is not serving us so that we can make room and open up for what does, to put it very simply and very broadly. And so this Scorpio new moon is a part of that, okay? So we did just have Jupiter station retrograde. It is bringing in blessings. There are beautiful synchronicities, and there's a lot of really profound energy at hand right now. And if you are tapped into it, it is so freaking beautiful. But it's also it can be a little bit intense at times. And I wanted to point out first and foremost with this new moon, even though I think sometimes we have a tendency to think of full moons as being intense and new moons as like, yeah, you get to make wishes and it's a new beginning and all that. I mean, there is truth to that, but this one's going to be intense. So I'm just going to give y'all a heads up right off the bat. This new moon in Scorpio, what a surprise. It's going to be intense, okay? Because there's several aspects happening that are bringing they are bringing some intensity up to the surface. Some things that are really deep within us are coming up to the surface right now. And other stuff too. So let's talk about it, but I just wanted to put that out there for you to know right off the bat. Okay, so again, it's November 20th. Give yourself space, give yourself room to process all of this. And if you have planets or major angles in your chart that are near 28 degrees, you could give it like 5 degrees on either side. Okay, if you have planets or major angles at 28 degrees in your chart, this is going to be acutely felt by you. It is even more so if you have planets or major angles that are in one of the fixed signs. So that's going to be Leo, Aquarius, and then Scorpio or Taurus, okay? Yeah. So let's get into the astrology first, and then we're going to burrow our way ever so deeper into the esoteric stuff. All right. So the first thing I'm going to pull up is this chart here. This is my OG chart because I haven't drawn on top of it. That's why I'm calling it my OG chart. Let me go ahead and make it just a tiny bit bigger for you. There we go. Okay. So again, ignore the houses. They don't matter here. We're just looking at the planets and the signs. Let's start with the most basic thing. Okay, so with this new moon, the new moon itself, 28 degrees of Scorpio, it is going to be conjunct, almost exactly conjunct with retrograde Mercury. It is also almost exactly conjunct with Black Moon Lilith. Okay. Then we also have Venus kind of hanging out nearby. And yeah, so that in and of itself. So there's a quadruple conjunction between Sun, Moon, retrograde Mercury, and Black Moon Lilith. Here's Black Moon Lilith making an appearance once again, a prominent appearance in one of these events. So once again, we have this shadow stuff. And by the way, Black Moon Lilith, just as an archetype, kind of holds Scorpio type energy or Plutonian type energy. It's just that she's more of that feminine energy, but it very much is like going deep into the parts of yourself that need to be integrated so that you can step into your empowerment in a nutshell. Okay. And I've talked about that before, and we've already been through all this. So if you want to learn more about that, venture back to my Jupiter video that I just did. Go check out my articles on Substack. You can dig into Black Moon Lilith and all of her juicy symbolism in those other places. So this quadruple conjunction in Scorpio is intense, all right? Now we have a kite aspect pattern that is also connected to this quadruple conjunction / new moon. So, at the apex of this kite, directly across from the new moon, we have retrograde Uranus in Taurus. It is at the anaretic degree of Taurus. This, in and of itself, is very intense energy. Having an opposition between that quadruple conjunction and Uranus at the anaretic degree of Taurus, that by itself is very intense energy. But it's also a kite. So we have a grand water trine with retrograde Jupiter in Cancer, Neptune and Saturn in Pisces, which are still kind of linked together, and then the new moon quadruple conjunction. So those 3 points form a grand water trine. Water is going to bring up emotions and psychic information. Okay, so when I talk about intensity, we're talking about emotional intensity, and we're talking about the shadow, and we're talking about psychic material coming up to the surface, okay? Something is being rebirthed because it's a new moon and because it's Scorpio. Something is being rebirthed at this time. So Jupiter and then Neptune and Saturn then form a sextile, each of them, to Uranus, okay? And that is what gives us the apex of this kite formation. So whenever you have a kite, it almost looks like a little crossbow. And the planet which breaks the grand trine, because a kite always has a grand trine between 3 points involving at least 3 or more planets. The grand trine is very fluid, it's very harmonious energy, but it's kind of like too easy and it's not enough tension to get us to do anything with that energy. And that's why kites are really beneficial, because you then bring in a fourth body or a fourth point. In our case, it's going to be Uranus. And this fourth point forms an opposition to one of the planets within the grand trine. Okay, that opposition creates tension. So it's very tense energy. And like I've talked about in past videos, oppositions have a tendency to imply mirroring through relationships, okay, and communication and that type of thing. So it's likely that relationships are going to come up at this time. And we will also talk about some other factors that point to that as well. But this opposition aspect within the kite is actually a blessing because it offers us a focal point to channel the energy of the grand water trine. So it's going to be giving us some motivation to do something with all of that fluid, harmonious, free-flowing energy. I'm just laughing though because it's Uranus. It's like one of the most intense planets that we have. I mean, all the outer planets are like that, but Uranus is. Whew, 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 whew. So I've talked about this before as well. When we look at the tarot and we look at the archetypes of the tarot, traditionally, Uranus is associated with the Fool, and Mars is associated with the Tower card. Now, I have my own opinion about this, and I actually do see how Uranus can be connected to the Fool. We'll talk about that some other time. But I also just, whenever I see that Tower card, I always think of Uranus because in the classic, like Rider-Waite symbolism, it shows a big tower, a big fancy like castle tower being struck by lightning, and it is starting to collapse, and there's a king and a queen that are falling from one of the windows. And you'll notice the castle has no doors. It just has this window at the top. So it symbolizes like the perceived stability that we create around ourselves. I told you guys I'm going to go deep. This is going to be a longer video, just so you know. I can already tell. It represents this perceived stability, these walls that we build around ourselves, okay? That can be the ego. It often is the ego. And so we build these walls, we construct this sense of safety. But in that sense of safety kind of represents the principle of Saturn, where it's something that's crystallized. It's something that we have defined for ourselves. We've nestled into it and we feel like we're very sturdy and solid within that place, okay? Uranus doesn't like that because that type of energy limits our ability to grow. And Uranus just wants us to be free and to keep growing and to keep learning. That is the whole principle of Uranus. So, what it does is it comes in and it deconditions or destabilizes us in places where we have crystallized via the principle of Saturn or via our ego. And it is completely impersonal. It doesn't care about your feelings. It doesn't care about, how much it's going to disrupt your life. It will come in and it will like shock you. It will create chaos and disruption. Okay. And that to me is why I always associate this Tower card with Uranus. So that is what we have going on here with this new moon. Now, I'm not saying that this energy is going to manifest on the new moon. It could. It may have already manifested for you in some way, and we're looking at the follow through from one of those events in your life, or we're looking, this is an ending and a beginning, okay? Between the Taurus full moon and the Scorpio new moon, we are talking about an ending and a beginning that are linked together. And the way that that plays out for each of us is going to be a little bit different, and it could be a slightly nonlinear process, okay? But that's the theme, that's the name of the game. So, the kite is a beautiful thing because it symbolizes some kind of destiny, some kind of point of purpose where we are being directed to move forward, to shake out of our comfort zone so that we can keep growing and keep moving towards our purpose. And the planet at the apex, in our case, Uranus at the anaretic degree of Taurus, is symbolizing what we are meant to move into. Okay. But there is a balance still going on between the opposite point of the apex, which in our case is going to be that new moon quadruple conjunction. Okay. So this is our first configuration. It's a lot of energy, right? We're involving all of the outer planets except for Pluto, but Pluto rules the new moon, so Pluto is involved. So it is, but it isn't. No, it is involved. This is super, super big energy. And I don't want to be a drama queen about this, but you guys, this is a big one. This is a big one. So just brace yourselves. Hold on to your butts. Let's talk now briefly, because it's actually not my main focus, but let's talk briefly about relationships and how this comes into play. How these come into play. Sorry, let me see if I can make this bigger. Why is that not getting bigger? There it goes. You guys are like, nothing's happening from our end. What are you saying, Christina? Okay. So just to show you guys that relationships do come into this. And I want to really emphasize the reason that relationships are so important is because they show us the shadow. They are the mirror that is held up to us so that we can see our shadow, so that we can see aspects of ourselves that we normally couldn't see very clearly. Okay. That is the reason why relationships are emphasized during this particular transit. Um, and I did talk about in my Jupiter video how during Jupiter's retrograde cycle, Mercury's still retrograde, by the way, uh, we are potentially, for those of us who are primed for this, who have it written into our contract, our destiny, whatever you want to call that, we have the ability to connect with our soulmates through Jupiter's retrograde cycle. And soulmate means a lot of things. And yes, it can mean romantic partnerships. It can also mean soul tribe. It can mean the people that you are kindred spirits with, the people that you belong with, your community. Okay. And so that is why relationships are highlighted now, because what's coming through this new moon in Scorpio, it's prepping us. It's part of the process of what Jupiter is bringing us. Jupiter's involved in that height aspect pattern. It's part of the grand water trine, right? And again, like go watch the Jupiter video if you want to get all the information about that. But we're talking about going into the root of ourselves and getting into our psyches and figuring out who we truly are as part of this process. So again, relationships reflect back to you the parts of yourselves that you cannot see clearly, and they are incredibly useful in that sense. And I don't mean to make them sound utilitarian. It's just, that's one of the benefits of relationships is you get this mirror that you wouldn't otherwise have if you were always just in your own little bubble. And so this is important because if you are going to call in your soulmate, your soul tribe, your community, in order to get into resonance with that frequency, which is going to be a high frequency, right? Because it's going to be in alignment with your soul contract and with your soul's purpose. You really have to integrate within yourself, and you really have to heal the parts of yourself that are not quite there yet, that are still sort of stuck in density or stuck to, with karmic ties or just aren't there yet, right? So this new moon is part of that process of getting you there. It's part of the transformation, okay? And I'm going to talk more about that in my next image of the chart that I'm going to show you. But first, like just to demonstrate how relationships are also highlighted in another way. I mentioned that we also have Venus at, I think it's at 16 degrees of Scorpio. So Venus is making an aspect to the nodal axis during this new moon. Okay, so she's sextile with the south node and she is trine with the north node. So, this in and of itself symbolizes that we are being given tools from our past that help us transform the way that we are relating to people now and also what our values are in relationship so that we can move into our North Node destiny. Okay, so that we can transform into a higher expression, something that's more spiritual, something that's more aligned. And Venus happens to rule Uranus's position at this time at 29 degrees of Taurus. I also forgot to mention Uranus is extra important because this is its last hurrah in the sign of Taurus. So, it will cross that anaretic degree one more time after it goes direct next year. But this is it. Like, it's been transiting through Taurus since what? 2019, I think. Don't quote me on that. I think that's close though. It's been a while, right? It's been, 6 years or so. It's been transiting through that sign. So this is its last turn through Taurus. So the last lessons that we are being tested on are being given to us now. That's also true for Saturn and Neptune moving through Pisces, okay, which are also part of this configuration. Back to Venus. Venus rules Uranus's position. So again, we have relationships highlighted as a theme here. So Venus is making that aspect to the nodal axis. She is also squaring Chariklo in Aquarius. Chariklo is the feminine wounded healer, okay? So any kind of wounds that we are carrying around community, group acceptance, or potentially fixed ego that is preventing us from being of service and of stepping into our higher purpose, okay? That is being challenged right now. Wounds are being poked at and stirred up at this time because if there's a wound, it needs to be healed. It needs to be alchemized, okay? And that is what is on offer right now through this new moon. So it's uncomfortable. Be prepared for that. It's uncomfortable, but it is the principle of Pluto, transformation through pain. The more that you can acquiesce and let yourself move through the burn, the faster it will go, and the more you will be transformed and you can step into empowerment. Now, Venus is also, she is also semi-sextile with goddess asteroid Juno in Sagittarius. And then Juno is sextile with Chariklo. So Juno is interesting because she represents divine marriage, okay? This can be divine union within yourself and your higher self. And she also shows us the types of relationships or dynamics within relationships that mirror back to us what we need in order to integrate within ourselves. So it's not always like happy, romantic type of relationship aspects. It can be painful, difficult, challenging relationship dynamics. But where she is in your chart shows what you need to grow in relationships, okay? And that growth will ultimately help you unionize within yourself, okay? Masculine, feminine, hieros gamos union. So, okay. So all these points are connected, okay? And this all connects to relationships, all right? And just the archetype of Taurus and Scorpio themselves, those archetypes themselves, also connect to relationships because we have Taurus, which is all about autonomy and self-sustainability. So who am I when I am on my own, standing in my own values and rules the second house, versus Scorpio, which rules the eighth house, which is all about merging resources with another person. Scorpio is the most intimate sign, and it wants to become one. It wants two to become one. So it is all about merging with someone else. And again, we have a new moon in Scorpio. So whatever our concepts of that are at this time, or what they previously have been throughout our lives, what does it mean to merge with something outside of myself? That is being rebirthed during this time into a higher form. Because again, whatever is in the shadow, whatever is not in alignment with the higher purpose, it has to go. It has to be transformed at this time. Okay, like I said, I wasn't going to focus too much on relationships. Moving right along. Here we have our final chart. This is the big reveal that I'm excited about and that I'm going to talk the most about. You're like, wait a minute, you've already been talking for like 26 minutes, Christina. What else could you have to say? Oh, I have so much more to say, you guys. Like I said, we're going deep. We haven't even gone there yet. Okay. I have drawn in pink. We have a T-square. Okay, so that opposition between Uranus and the quadruple conjunction in Scorpio, each of those points is squaring a third point, which is Mary Magdalena, the asteroid, at 29 degrees of Leo. This is huge energy, and to me, this is the highlight of this new moon event. And we're going to talk about why that is. But just know this is going to be very intense energy because, again, we have 3 fixed signs. We have Scorpio, Taurus, Leo. Those are all fixed modality energies. That means that each of them is resistant to change, okay? And we have Uranus, which is just this shocking, upsetting, uprooting, chaotic energy. We have a quadruple conjunction, Sun and Moon, which are key aspects of our personality. We have the Sun, which is our ego, our conscious ego. The Moon is our unconscious ego. And then we have Mercury, which is our perception and communication. And then we have Black Moon Lilith, which is this like feminine shadow that we all carry. That is a lot of energy just packed into a conjunction. That in and of itself is intense. And then you have Uranus, which is like zapping that and wanting to decondition that energy and wanting to shake things up and change it. And then you have each of those points squaring goddess asteroid Mary Magdalena, the divine feminine Christ. And she's in the sign of Leo. Okay. So that right there offers us a clue as to what this energy is telling us. Okay. Because Mary Magdalena is the divine feminine. Like if you want to pick one planetary body to represent the divine feminine, I would place my bet on Mary Magdalena because she is the feminine Christ. And I find it really interesting. She's at the anaretic degree of Leo. Okay, so anaretic degrees, you guys, this is initiation, this is intensity, this is the closing of a cycle, this is closing karmic loops, this is finishing up old contracts, and this is bridging together 2 different signs, okay? So this, again, is extra intense energy, and it absolutely, this new moon represents an initiation in general for all of us. But again, if you have planets or major angles that are near 29 degrees, by the way, that also includes your progressed chart, not just your birth chart. So if you know your progressed chart and you have stuff at 29 degrees, yeah, this is going to be really intense for you. This is an initiation for you. But it's a beautiful thing because it is up-leveling you. I'm talking like if you have felt stuck, fixed energy, right? If you have felt stuck in your life in certain aspects, in certain parts of yourself for a very long time, if you feel like you've just been doing the work, and it's like you never can quite break through, a lot of the time that stuff is karmic because there's just a lot that you have to work with and a lot that you might be working against that comes in often from past lives. It's stuff that we don't even hold conscious awareness of. And in my Jupiter video, I talked about how a lot of us are doing a lot of karmic clearing for our ancestry. So some of this stuff might not even be our shit, so to speak, to deal with, if that makes sense. We just agreed, okay, I'll do it. I'll clean it up. I'll be the one to clean it up. Like, I'll volunteer to do it. And actually, I don't mean to make that sound disempowering, because if you signed up to do this work, I have to tell you, you are a spiritual badass, because this is not easy work to do. Okay, I'm talking like you've been carrying a load on your back for a very long time, probably your entire life. Okay, and you've been trying and you've been trying and you've been trying, and it's so hard to break through. But that is the beauty of this event. It is intense, it is a moment of initiation, but it is the breakthrough. This is it. And again, this ties into that beautiful Jupiter retrograde blessing energy. This is part of the blessing, the breakthrough. It's like you've been in this energy so long, you can't even imagine what it's going to be like to not be in it anymore. That's how beautiful it is and how big this energy is. So, okay, let's put that away for a second. What am I going to show you next? Do you guys know? You know what I'm going to show you next. I did a tarot reading. Of course I did a tarot reading, because this is Scorpio. We're going to go deep, folks. We're going to go deep. And the tarot isn't even the whole thing that I'm going to go into, but let's just talk about this a little bit. Okay. We're going to go on some tangents. So I want you to prepare yourself mentally for some tangents. If you're not into this kind of communication or this type of stuff, then you're not going to enjoy this. So thanks for stopping by. We'll see you later. If you do enjoy it, get into it with me. So here's a tarot reading that I did on this Scorpio New Moon. It's a lot. I'm not going to go into every little single thing, actually. The two things I want to focus on the most are the significator cards for this event, which are shown at the top. They are archetype cards. We have the stone and we have the thread. Okay. This absolutely symbolizes the energy of what's going on with this event, okay? The stone and the thread. Oh, this is so deep. I'm trying to think of where to start with this. Okay, let's start with the stone, because I think this is the more important symbol and archetype for what we have with this new moon in Scorpio. What does the symbol of the stone as an archetype mean? Carl Jung was actually very, very into the concept of the stone. And it really does symbolize like the wholeness, the completeness, the bedrock of our foundation as a human, as a soul, as a spiritual being, as an entity of the universe, okay? It represents who we are at our core, at our basic essence. When you get down underneath all the layers, that's who you are. You are the stone. The card meaning, when you read the book, it literally talks about the stone being this like consciousness that lives for millennia and just sits there and observes and watches as time passes by, but the stone remains unchanged. That is the essence of this energy. It is who you are at the deepest level underneath everything. This goes so well with the Jupiter in Cancer energy that I have talked about in past videos. So it's very on par with what's going on right now. And I love that this came out. I also have to go on a really quick tangent. Last night, I just felt super, super into watching Harry Potter. I was like, I want to watch Harry Potter, and I'm going to go right back to the beginning. I haven't even watched the first movie in a really long time, but I'm going to watch the first one. Let's start it, and we're going to go through all of them, because my inner child is like, please give me Harry Potter. So I watched Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone last night, and it was great. Of course it was great. And Harry Potter is just filled. It is just replete with archetypal and spiritual symbolism if you ever want to dig into that stuff. But anyway, I digress. Then I got up today and started researching more about the stone. And then I learned that Carl Jung was so into the stone archetype because he associated it with the Philosopher's Stone. What? I swear I didn't know that. When I wanted to watch Harry Potter, I was just thinking about magic and and just like the story of Harry Potter. I don't know. I had no idea. And then it turns out that the stone is associated with the Philosopher's Stone, right? And the Philosopher's Stone, among other things, is about immortality, right? It's about giving ourselves immortality, or the ability to give ourselves immortality. So I find this really interesting because, again, this archetype, it's like who you are in the eternal now, like who you are beneath it all. It is interconnecting the personal self and the universal self, the human and the spirit. It's where these energies intersect and exist within you. Okay. And as soon as oh my God, as soon as I saw this card, I kept thinking about that Audio Slave song. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? Oh my gosh, that Audio Slave song. It's been playing in my head, just the chorus of it. I don't even know what the whole meaning of the song is. Like, I haven't really broken it down, but the chorus of it has just been ringing in my head over and over and over again. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? Do you know the song? Okay. Well, anyway, it is all about being, it's okay. It goes like, in your house, I long to be, room by room, patiently, and I'll wait for you there, like a stone, and I'll wait for you there, alone. Okay, I can't believe I just sang for you guys. So, it's about being inside. It's this like consciousness. It's even more than just consciousness, but it's this core piece of yourself that's inside of you. And it's about like how that part of you exists while the ego is running around, living out your life, living out the show, the illusion, right? And there's this core part of you that's just waiting inside, right? In mysticism, they talk about the inner castle. They talk about, and there's that castle, right, from the tower. They talk about the mansions or the many rooms that exist within. These are all metaphors for the soul, the inner self, okay? So it's like there's this inner part of you that exists, and it's waiting. It's waiting for the ego. It's waiting for the consciousness to recognize it, to remember it, to come back home to it. Okay. So again, I'm not really sure exactly what the Audio Slave song is if I put all the verses together and all that jazz, but the chorus very much resonates with that energy. It's like there's this thing that's waiting. So I know I'm getting like super lost, and I'm sorry, you guys. It's Mercury retrograde, and I just feel like I'm making so many connections. My brain and my mouth can't keep up with it all. So this new moon is bringing us back to that part of ourselves, that inner stone, the wholeness. Carl Jung talked about the Philosopher's Stone because it's like once you go through this alchemical process and you strip away all of the impurities and all of the layers that are not self with a capital S, you return to this wholeness, this essence of who you truly are. Okay. Whew. So the stone is part of this new moon in Scorpio. We also have the thread. The thread is very similar to the stone, and the thread is like the red thread, right? So this has several meanings, but two primary ones. The thread is like the string or whatever that is always tied to you throughout all your lifetimes. It's like the singular current that runs through everything, the singular truth that runs through all experiences, all relationships, all lifetimes, all aspects of your being. It is the heart, the cord of you, right? And it also involves fate and fated events and fated relationships, because another symbol of the thread is like the red thread of fate. So it's like symbolic of, we could call it node points that lie in your destiny, in your soul's plan, okay? So it's like we're birthed into existence. We have free will. We make choices that collapse timelines, right? Because we are creator beings, and our consciousness and our choices and our energy will manifest things and magnetize things to us. That will change our timeline and the way that our path runs. But we also have these node points, which are like manifest destiny. They are points in our path, contracts in our path that will happen no matter what, right? So it's like no matter what choices you make, you're always going to be led to that point. And it doesn't matter which path you take to get there, that point always exists on your map, so to speak. And you have to pass through that gate or that point no matter what. So the thread is kind of like node points on your path. And it can be certain experiences that you have that your soul is contracted to experience. It can also be relationships and people that you are contracted with. Okay. So these two cards together, it's like we've gone through many lifetimes and we've gone through many rebirths in this lifetime. And through it all, there is this core essence, this being inside of you that is the creator, that is the divine, right? Because it's a facet of the divine that is encapsulated in this singular form. And then we have this thread that ties all of our experiences together, all of our relationships together. And the thread is not just our past or where we are right now, it's also our future and where we're going. Because time doesn't really exist and everything is all happening simultaneously, right? And the thread is actually like, I guess from a linear perspective, we see it as a thread, but from a multidimensional perspective, it's more like a ball. So I know I'm getting wild here, guys, but I love it. I love it. So that is what this is about. And remember, I talked in my Jupiter retrograde video about soulmates, right? Those are fated relationships. There are certain people that you will come into contact with in your life that, whether it's karma or whatever, it's a fated relationship. It's a contracted relationship. It's there to teach you something. It's there to activate something in you. It's there to initiate you, okay? And whatever that is, certain things, need to be activated and taken with us, and certain things need to be let go and transformed so that we can keep evolving and keep moving forward on the path. Okay, very briefly, I'm going to talk about these other cards, and then we're going to return to Mary Magdalena. So through this Scorpio new moon, we have a lot on the table, okay? We have activation of our truth and the throat chakra. Okay, we can see that very clearly through Leo, Mary Magdalena in Leo, holding the apex of the T-square aspect pattern. Uranus is also about truth. Pluto, which is ruling this new moon and is in the sign of Aquarius, is also about truth. Okay, finding your truth and speaking your truth. But it's not just about speaking, it's about embodying your truth, your essence, who you really are. The stone, right? The stone. Okay. We have the ability to manifest so much for ourselves. Okay. We have this endless possibilities card. We have manifest your dreams, this unicorn card. Together, this is about shifting your perception, Mercury, about what you think is possible, and manifesting what is meant for you. And again, the stone, the red thread, fate. There is something that you are fated to do. You have a contract to fulfill. Okay? How you get there is your choice, but we are empowered. We are empowered to make different choices. Okay? And to up level what we can manifest in our reality. All right. We've got the Leo and the relationships. We've already talked about a lot of that. This is really about deconditioning the way that we perceive things so that we can manifest something different. Through the tarot cards on the bottom, we have a new beginning, we have confrontation with the shadow, we have embodying divine feminine energy, being initiated into a new phase of our lives through the Four of Wands that is going to represent, or not going to represent, it's going to bring in so much more stability, peace, joy, celebration, happiness, fulfillment. Okay, this is a celebratory card, but it does represent walking through a gateway to get there. And then we have very clearly at the end of all of this, we have the World and we have the Fool connected by the Eight of Wands. We have an ending, a completion of a cycle. I've been talking about this, the end, the closing of a karmic cycle, which is happening very swiftly with the Eight of Wands. And we have the Fool, which is a new beginning. The beginning. The Fool, again, is also connected to Uranus. So we have a brand new beginning that is coming as something else closes. The Eight of Wands in this particular deck also reminds me of shifting timelines because of the way that the artwork is. So that is what we are doing. We are shifting timelines through this event. We may be receiving some kind of communication at this time that helps us to do this. Now, that can mean a lot of things. Maybe it's good news, and you're like, yes, awesome, new opportunity. I'm going to embrace that. I manifested that. I'm a badass. It could also be bad news. Something is collapsing. Uranus is shocking you out of nowhere and breaking up your reality and shifting the ground that you stand on. And it feels calamitous. But at the same time, you are a badass. So you are going to let it all burn down and you are going to rise up like the scorpionic phoenix and you are going to be rebirthed and you are going to emerge into a brand new timeline. There's a lot of things. We could also be drawing down some kind of message, some kind of intuitive knowing, because we are talking about divine feminine energy here. And again, I'm going to talk about that in a second. So there's a lot going on, but just know this is very intense energy. This is all a big deal. It's a big deal, okay? And again, maybe you won't feel this quite as acutely, but I'm telling you, if you have stuff that's around 28 degrees, 28, 29 degrees, especially if it's in one of those fixed signs, you're gonna feel this. You're gonna feel this. Okay, let's take this away. Sorry, guys, I feel like this frenetic energy moving through me right now. Maybe that's Uranus. So I apologize if I'm kind of like all over the place here. That's just kind of the energy that I'm channeling right now, picking up. So get ready. So yeah, let's see. What else did I want to talk about? I just want to check my notes. Okay, so going back to Mary Magdalena. Whenever we have T-squares in astrology, which is, two planets in opposition, gridlocked, and then they square a third planet. The key to resolving that tension, and there's going to be tension, especially with those being in fixed signs and at 29 degrees, there's going to be some tension with this. The key to resolving the tension lies in the apex planet of the T-square. In our case, that is Mary Magdalena. That is the divine feminine. That is the energy of the Christ, okay? She is the feminine Christ. So she is automatically bringing us to the highest level. Actually, no, she's initiating us. 29, initiation, anaretic degree. She is initiating us into the highest expression of Leo. Okay? That is our gateway, our portal through this energy. So we are going to feel a lot of tension going on between the Scorpio and the Taurus of it all. All right. Taurus wants to hold on to what it has, what it's created, its sense of self, its independence, its self isolation, self sustainability. It wants to hold on to that security. Scorpio wants to control everything, right? And it wants power. It doesn't want to lose power. It doesn't want to go through the pain of it all. That's actually the lower expression of Scorpio in Pluto. It's avoiding and resisting the pain that is required of transformation. These things get gridlocked in opposition. We have relationships come up, okay? Something that we are called to look at that needs our attention, right? And it could be coming through that mirror of relationships. So this is going to be very tense energy. Mary Magdalena comes into the picture and squares both of those energies by saying, hey, you got to step into the higher expression of Leo if you want to resolve this dilemma. And Leo is the heart, right? I find this really interesting because there are certain theories in astrology that Yeshua, Jesus, actually had Leo energy. And I don't remember if it was a Pluto in Leo thing or if it was Leo rising, but he had this strong Leo energy. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. So I find it interesting that his divine feminine, Mary Magdalena, is like holding the keynote for this event at the anaretic initiatory degree of Leo. It's like do or die. Like you got to get on the Leo train right now if you want to close this karmic cycle. You are being asked to upshift into the highest expression of Leo at this time. What does that mean? Well, in the lower expression of Leo, we have a lot of ego, right? Because Leo rules or is ruled by the sun, and the sun is part of the new moon, right? So we have our ego self that wants to cling, fixed sign, right? It wants to cling to what the ego believes, what it perceives, what it has created for itself, what the ground that it stands on that makes it feel secure, right? So, and that might show up in a lot of different ways for each of us. But, Leo is associated with creativity. So it's what we create. It's also, in its lower expression, Leo is performative. It's like you will pander to your audience for applause, for acceptance from others, right? That is the shadow of Leo. It is about altering your creations in order to garner acceptance and applause from your audience. And of course, I'm speaking symbolically here, so apply that wherever it fits. But it is essentially pandering rather than standing in your truth. This is why Leo is balanced by its sister sign Aquarius, because in order for one to really tap into the power of Leo, the strength of Leo, which is through the heart of the inner child, you have to shed all the layers of insecurity and the need for approval in order to shine your light from the most authentic core essence of yourself. Okay? And again, if you want to get deep into stuff, think about Jesus and think about what he did and how he lived his life, Talk about shining your light from your heart and not giving an F about what anybody thinks about you, right? I have a mission. I have a creative mission. I am an expression of the divine, and I came here to express my energy in this specific way that only I can do. So, but yeah, Leo just wants love also. Leo just wants love. So we have Taurus, which wants security and survival and harmony that is cultivated through the self. And then we have Scorpio, which wants connection and empowerment by merging with others or sources of power outside of yourself. And then you have Leo that wants acceptance and love and to be able to share with others from your heart. So all of these are being alchemized through the divine feminine, through the principle of the divine feminine at this time. Okay, so divine feminine energy, bam, that's your key to resolving the tension. What does that look like? Well, for one thing, we're talking about union with the self. Okay, and I think I mentioned this earlier. We are talking about union within the self. This is an initiation to go within into the inner chambers of the heart, of the inner mansion, the soul, finding the stone, right? Following the thread to find the stone within. Who am I underneath all the layers? Who am I? This is very deep esoteric stuff because when you really peel back everything, who we are underneath it all is no thing, nothing, no thing. It's the isness of our being, our beingness, right? There's no ego attached to it. It's just empty space, but the empty space isn't really empty, right? Because it's everything and it's nothing. And it's all there to present the ability to fill in the space, right? Like we have a polarized reality. We understand things through comparison, through duality. So in order for us to understand something, we have to stand from a place of nothing to perceive the something. I don't know if this is making sense to you. Hopefully it makes sense. And maybe contemplate this. But to go deep within the self, you are essentially uncovering the divine within you. Okay? And this is not divine attached to ego. This is not like saying, I think I'm Jesus, This isn't like that. This is discovering the Christ within. This is the inner Christ. And that inner Christ is unconditional love. And it is the isness behind everything, free of ego, free of restriction, and standing, reverberating in pure, essential truth. Why do we want to get in touch with the isness of the stone? How many metaphors can I spit out here? Within the mansion, inside the self. Why do we want to get in touch with that? Because that is the base of operations from which we want to work as we go forward into the year of the fire horse, as we connect with our soulmates, as we move into our purpose in this life. That is the base of operations, right? You do need your ego. I'm not saying that you get rid of your ego, but I'm saying that the ego doesn't run the show anymore, right? And the ego has been doing a lot of work. We've had all these karmic relationships and experiences and loops and patterns and things that we've had to work through, and some of it's ours and some of it is not ours. And we are now closing that cycle. It's done. We are now moving into something brand new. But to be ready for the brand new, we have to go into the purest essence of who we are, because that is where we hold the most integrity and the ability to truly create something that is rooted in love. We need to be rooted in love if we are to create something brand new compared to that which has already come before, right? And that's what we're here to do. We're here to create something brand new. It is a whole new paradigm. So, Mary Magdalena is initiating us to embrace divine feminine energy through the heart. Okay? So we're dropping the masks and we're dropping the ego and we are dropping resistance. I love this next metaphor. Okay. So I watched Harry Potter, right? There was multiple synchronicities that came through. And by the way, if you want to get into the energy of the heart and Leo and Christ and that kind of stuff, analyze Gryffindor and the whole energy of Harry Potter and uh, his Patronus and his mom's Patronus and Snape's Patronus. Oh my God. Somebody needs to talk to me about this sometime because I really want to nerd out and have a really deep esoteric conversation about this. But anyway, as I was watching this first Harry Potter, the Philosopher's Stone, there's a part when they go into, when they get past Cerberus, the three-headed dog, who's guarding the trap door, and they go through the trap door, and all three, Hermione and Ron and Harry, land in this pile of like twisty, thorny weed stuff, and it starts to like wrap around them, and they're resisting. And Hermione says, "Oh, this is devil's snare." And she says, and they're like resisting, and it's like wrapping tighter, and it's going to kill them. And she says, "The trick to devil's snare is you have to stop resisting it and you have to relax." And she's the woman, right? She's the feminine out of all three of them. And she immediately relaxes and just bloop, drops through the trap, right? I thought, oh my gosh, this is exactly the energy that we're talking about right now. So again, synchronicity. And so interesting, right? Because you're talking about Christ. And then you get into this energy of the devil or evil. And I mean, not to get too philosophical, and we can all talk about this some other time, but especially when you look at like the tarot, the devil archetype is really about attachment. It's about attachment, and it's ego attachment. The archetype of the devil feeds on your ego and your attachment to ego and what you don't want to let go of. That's when you get pulled into quote unquote evil. And some people say that evil is really just the opposite of innocence. And innocence is really just this ability to open and to allow and to let in. So it's so interesting. And that is exactly what we are being called to do. So it's so interesting because you have this Uranus new moon quadruple conjunction in opposition, and it's this tense aspect. And there's going to be this need to like, I got to take control of this, or I got to fight this, or I'm panicking. Like Uranus just shocked me and something is collapsing in my life and I'm freaking the F out right now. There might be things like this that come up for each of us. And there's going to be this tension and this desire to hold on or to resist. And what Mary Magdalena is doing is she's coming in to the heart and channeling this divine feminine energy with unconditional love, with gentleness, with compassion. And she's saying, you have to surrender. You have to let go. You have to relax. And you have to allow. This is feminine energy. There's nothing for you to do. All you have to do is be and wait and allow. And when you do that, that is when you walk through the fire. That is when you are reborn. That is when you are initiated. That is when you move through this energy. And that is when the old cycle collapses and the new one opens. I just think this is super cool. I love this energy. I love the synchronicities that are coming through. And by the way, that's part of this energy. There's a lot of really deep information. Mercury is retrograde, right? There's a lot of really deep information to be had for each of us. And we each have access to this information, but it requires feminine energy to access. So you have to get quiet, you have to be still, and you have to be like the stone. Observe, right? You just have to observe. And through that observation and through that non-resistance, through that flow, that release, that relaxation, that allowing, that's when the insights can flood in. That's when we are given that divine spark of inspiration. And that's when the new path opens. And here we go with all the Jupiter blessings. They're going to start rolling out. We just have to move through this initiation process. Wow. Okay. That was a lot, folks. And I just have to say thank you so much. This is over an hour long. You've hung with me the whole time. If you're still here, thank you. Wow. This was this was a lot for me. I don't know what it was. I could feel myself channeling some energy while I was doing this one. So I apologize if I seemed a little wacky. I can't believe I sang to you guys. I never thought I would do that. And yeah, it was kind of a little bit all over the place, but I hope that it all made sense. And the bottom line is that this is a beautiful segue for us all. Okay. November is an amazing month filled with opportunity, filled with change and with manifestation and oh, so much growth, so much growth. So get ready because all the stuff you've been carrying, all the burdens that have been weighing you down, you are about to let them all go. Just lay down your burden. You are about to let it all go. And you are about to open up to infinite possibilities. Whatever is possible for you, it is going to come in. Jupiter's bringing it. You manifested it. You've done the work. Congratulations. You are amazing. You are a badass. And I am so excited. I'm so excited for all of us. Okay, folks. Thank you so much for being here. Please, again, subscribe, like, notification bell, follow me on social media. If you think anyone would resonate with this information, please share it. I greatly, greatly appreciate it. I appreciate all of you. And I wish you all a beautiful Scorpio new moon. And I will catch you in the next one. Bye.